Hello, Duke fans. Welcome in to the Duke Blue Devils Insider Podcast, your daily podcast for all things Duke Blue Devils news, just like every day. We thank you so much for tuning into the show today. We have your weekly recruiting update this week, joined by SI Recruiting Insider Max Dorsey. My name is Hugh Strain, your daily host, as well as beat writer at Duke Blue Devils on SI. Happy to chat with you guys today and every single day. Like I just said, weekly recruiting update for you. So we're going to bring in SI Recruiting Insider Max Dorsey every Friday, like we usually do. Max, just like every Friday, happy to have you on the show.
Yeah, happy to be here, Hugh.
So we'll kick it off with football like we usually do. Max, you mentioned some major motion for the Duke football program over the last week in terms of offers, in terms of official visits and things along those lines. So we'll start with the offensive side of the ball here. Max, give us a little bit of an update on what Diaz and co. are doing on the offensive side of the ball in terms of future recruiting.
Yeah, so the main thing here, and it's going to kind of continue to be the trend as we head into the spring, is Duke is locking in official visits with some of their top targets in the 2027 recruiting class, and they're really honing in on these guys and trying to make progress with those top targets. So offensively, they set three official visits with players, 2 wide receivers and 1 offensive lineman. I'll start with a wide receiver here, Anthony Roberts, a 4-star prospect from Roseville High School, in-state guy in North Carolina. He scheduled an official visit over the weekend of June 5th. He's the number 384 overall prospect in the class and the number 55 wide receiver, according to Rivals. Duke was his first offer, so they've really been in this recruitment for a long time. He's a player that Diaz and his staff are very high on, and they've been trending for. Obviously, they're going to face competition. This is one of the top wide receivers in the country. He also has scheduled an official visit with Virginia Tech, and we know kind of the movement that we've seen from the Hokies on the recruiting trail with the hiring of James Franklin. So they've really become a competitive team here in the ACC. But Duke is holding their ground. I think they're going to be competitive throughout this recruitment, and getting Roberts on campus is certainly going to help their case in terms of ultimately being able to land him. And then another wide receiver that they have locked in an official visit with is Namaje Thompson, another North Carolina guy, goes to Crest High School in Shelby, North Carolina. He's scheduled an official visit with Duke from June 5th to June 7th as well. He's the number 896 overall prospect in the class and the number 119 wide receiver, according to Rivals. And it's interesting. His recruitment has really exploded as of late, and not even in terms of offers, but some of the schools that are getting him on campus. So along with Duke, he's going to take an official visit with Wake Forest and Michigan State, but also Alabama has recently surged for him here. So obviously, when you're going against Alabama in any recruitment battle, there's definitely going to be some competition. With him being a North Carolina guy, I do like where Duke stands here. And I do think they have a chance. It's really been the Blue Devils and Wake Forest throughout his recruitment, but definitely with these late teams like Michigan State and Alabama starting to surge, it's something to watch out for. And then the final offensive prospect that they've locked in an official visit with is Jackson Cook, an offensive lineman from Westlake High School in Austin, Texas. He's a 0-star prospect at the moment, but has over 12 Power 4 offers, has really gained traction in 2026 from some of the top programs in the country. Duke is, as of now, SMU just scheduled an official visit with him yesterday. So it's going to be Duke and SMU for now who have him scheduled for official visits, but another name to watch. And certainly all 3 of these players are players that Duke could land on the offensive side of the ball.
Max, we've talked about it on previous shows, and you mentioned 2 of those recruits are in-state guys, and we've talked about it, how difficult it can be specifically on the football recruiting trail for a program like Duke to land kids from, say, Texas, the West Coast, the Midwest, the South, really any guys outside of the East Coast, and really specifically the state of North Carolina. 2 of those surging recruits, the Blue Devils are heavily in the mix for. How important is it for the program to really prioritize and land those talented, in-state North Carolina kids relative to kids, in really any other region of the country, just given how difficult it can be to pull those recruits away from home?
Yeah, recruiting your own backyard is crucial for any college football program. It really is. It sounds cliche, but it's something that helps you build success. Obviously, building relationships with those coaching staffs helps you get an early in with some of the top prospects in the state. And then from there, you can kind of just culminate your recruiting success. And I think Carolina, especially both South and North, are interesting cases because you have not only a lot of schools in the state, and it's a state full of high school talent, but oftentimes the top players in the state are opting to leave the state and go to, the SEC schools are right close to home. All the Florida schools are right close to home. So I think there's even more competition for those players, and being able to be in the mix for some of the top prospects in state is certainly a very, very strong thing for Diaz and company at the moment.
So we'll move it on to the defensive side of the ball. Talked about some offensive recruits that Duke is going after, but Max, you've written some stories over the last week. Duke is, just as intense on the defensive side of the ball in future recruiting classes. Give us a little update on, what Diaz and co are doing on the defensive side of the ball in terms of recruiting right now.
Yeah, so I'll start with pass rushers. It's really seemed to be a priority for Duke as of late. I think last week, me and you talked about how they made the top 7 for Adriel Rojas, one of the top edge rushers in the 2027 class. And then this week, that kind of trend of, targeting some of the top edges in the class has continued. They offered Jace Brewer. He's a 4-star edge from Franklin Central High School in Indianapolis, Indiana, the number 345 overall prospect in the class, the number 33 edge rusher, had over 31 tackles, 9 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks, and 13 quarterback hurries in his junior season at Franklin Central. So, a preliminary offer, just kind of getting in the mix here. Brewer already has offers from over 20 schools. So Duke's entering that recruitment relatively late, but certainly could make progress with him in the coming months and eventually establish themselves as a contender in his recruitment. And then the other edge that I want to highlight here is Abraham Cisse, a 4-star edge, again, from Downingtown East High School in Pennsylvania. He named Duke last night to his top 6 alongside Florida State, Miami, Notre Dame, Penn State, and South Carolina. This is a prospect that Duke had offered in April of 2025, has been pursuing throughout the 2027 cycle, got him on campus for junior day in early January. He got to see a basketball game. He spoke with rivals about, his experience on campus. He really liked it. And something me and you have talked about before, Hugh, is Cisse also likes the academics that Duke has. So that puts them very much in the mix here. Notre Dame has been the lead contender for him throughout his recruitment. And certainly it looks like that Notre Dame is going to continue that trend. But with official visits, if Duke can get this guy on campus, certainly could eventually be, have a real possibility of landing him. So that's a name to watch. It's a player that they've made his top 6. And I think this is someone that they'll schedule for an official visit in the near future. And then the other defensive player I wanted to touch on is a safety, Lance Henderson, another North Carolina guy. This guy is from Durham. So literally Duke is his hometown school. He's a number 472 prospect in the class, the number 45 safety. He has also scheduled an official visit with the Blue Devils for June 12th. And in addition to his trip to Durham, he's going to take trips with NC State, Rutgers, and Virginia Tech. So another competitive recruitment. But I do really like where Duke stands with him, especially with him being a Durham kid.
Yeah, those hometown guys have shown in the past for Duke to be, really, really good pieces. A guy like Vincent Anthony Jr. is currently at the 2026 NFL Draft Combine as we speak, spoke to the media yesterday. He is from Durham, North Carolina. So a prospect like Cisse, who, values the academics, values a program like Duke, but has some pretty legit high-power conference offers. This is still a prospect that Duke fans can get excited about. And even with a school like Notre Dame currently leading the recruitment, this is a guy that Duke can, keep on their radar, at least Duke fans, from that perspective, and have some hope of landing him.
Yeah, I certainly think so. And again, when you're going up against these upper echelon schools, and there's no sugarcoating that Duke isn't necessarily one of the top football schools in the country, it's always going to be hard to compete for the top prospects in the class. But again, the academics certainly plays a role. And when you talk, and I cover UCLA a lot too, and that's something prospects talk about with UCLA. It's not only about location. It's not only about, the history of the program and their ability to compete on the field year in and year out, and how many SEC or ACC or Big 12 championships they've won. A lot of the times players are looking for a place where they can get a degree and they know that there's life after whatever sport they're playing. And I think that's something that certainly helps Duke. And you mentioned this when we talked about academics last. A lot of these players are here for 3 years. So whether it's you're leaving early for after your junior season, you can come back and get your Duke degree, or if you're there for all 4 seasons, you're getting a Duke degree. It's not like basketball where you're seeing a lot of one and done. So I think that, especially in football, academics is going to play a role. And I think the fact that Cisse has gone out of his way to, state that academics matters to him and that he liked, what Duke brings to the table academically, I think will help the Blue Devils be a serious contender. Not to mention, it's not only the kids making these decisions, their parents are heavily involved as well. So parents are obviously going to love the academic side of things. And that can help, a school like Duke really stand out in some of the top prospects recruitments.
Yeah, academics quite a selling point for Duke relative to other power conference schools. Seems like most of the buzz we've had on these shows over the past week, Max, in terms of football has been very quarterback focused. So exciting for Duke fans to see a lot of other prospects get into the mix that the Blue Devils are interested in. We're going to bring it over to basketball because Jon Scheyer and co. are getting their feet wet in the 2027 recruiting trail. Some news on two prospects, including the #1 overall player in the class, according to the 247 Sports composite rankings. Max, give us the latest update on Scheyer and co.
Yeah, so another thing that me and you have talked about on the show is how Duke really slow plays their basketball recruitment, not offering a single 2027 prospect yet, but that does not mean that they're not communicating with these prospects and starting to pursue and build relationships with these prospects. So this week, I highlighted two prospects that I think Duke has really started to, kind of push for and will be some of their top targets in the 2027 class. And we'll start with the guy you just mentioned, CJ Rosser. This is the #1 guy, not only in 247 Sports' composite rankings, but also Rivals' industry rankings. So the consensus top prospect in the 2027 class. He's actually a North Carolina native, I believe grew up in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, but currently attends Southeastern Prep in Orlando, Florida. A very talented player, has a plethora of offers from some of the top programs in the country. But last month, he told Rivals' Joe Tipton that Scheyer and the Blue Devils staff have been in constant contact with him, and they've discussed how he would fit into the program. So this is a name to watch for the Blue Devils. And I think, as you see the 2027 cycle continue, this is a guy that will definitely be on Duke's radar and someone that Duke will certainly be in contention for.
Yeah, Rosser, the consensus, like you mentioned, Max, top player in the country, has taken unofficial visits to schools such as North Carolina, Louisville, Kentucky. It's, like we mentioned, the difference between football and basketball is Scheyer and co. will kind of slow play this recruitment. But, Scheyer and co. currently own the #1 overall 2026 recruiting class. This would be the third year in a row where Scheyer and his staff have inked the #1 class. Max, tell us a little bit about CJ Rosser as a prospect and, what he brings to the table. Already holds offers from schools such as Arkansas and Kentucky. What does he bring to the table? And, a guy that Duke can really go after, obviously the top player in the class.
Yeah, he's a modern day wing, a guy that can obviously score the ball at a very high level from beyond the arc and also in the paint as well, can create opportunities for himself. But he's also a playmaker. He has the ability to create for his teammates. And in his own words, in an interview with Rivals, he said he models his game after Kevin Durant and Brandon Ingram. So obviously these tall wings that are able to shoot the ball at a very high level is something that Rosser wants to bring to his game. And he has shown flashes of being able to do that. Not only flashes, but he is able to do that at a very high level at Southeastern Prep. And again, this is going to be a highly competitive recruitment, but you noted it, or you touched on it, that Duke has, been able to pull in the top recruits in the class year in and year out. So I really do believe that the Blue Devils will be very much in the mix for Rosser as his recruitment continues to heat up.
Yeah, Rosser certainly has the frame of a big at the next level, versatile kind of wing type player. That is going to do it for us here today at the Duke Blue Devils Insider Podcast, your weekly recruiting update, joined by SI Recruiting Insider Max Dorsey. Max, just like every week, thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Hugh.
That is going to do it for us here today. Just like every day, we thank you so much for tuning into the show. Make sure to check us out at si.com/college/Duke to get your latest on the Duke Blue Devils every single day. My name is Hugh Strain, your daily host, as well as beat writer at Duke Blue Devils on SI, and I'll see you tomorrow.